I remember the day everything changed as if it were yesterday. I was only 9 years old, sitting at our kitchen table, staring at the pattern on the faded tablecloth, when Mom and Dad sat down across from me. Their faces were serious, unusually tense. In the silence, broken only by the ticking of the antique wall clock, Dad reached out his hand to me, trembling slightly. His voice, usually so confident, was quiet, as if he barely dared to disturb the stillness of the moment. "Beatrice, sweetheart," he began, looking me in the eye. "I need to tell you something very important." I stared at him without looking away, feeling his words wrap around me like a cold cloud of unease. He said he had cancer. A word I didn't fully understand at the time, but its sound seemed to leave a heavy echo in the room. I noticed how Mom gripped her arms tighter as she sat beside him, as if trying to contain something that threatened to break free. Everything changed in that moment. The next 2 years turned our home, once cozy and filled with laughter, into a place where doctors, relatives, and neighbors came and went in an endless rotation. Dad, always strong and energetic, grew weaker, his bright light slowly dimming. Mom did everything she could to maintain a sense of normalcy, but even her most earnest efforts couldn't fool me, or herself. During the day, she forced smiles, but at night, I heard her muffled sobs behind their bedroom door. Sometimes, I sat outside that door, listening to her quiet cries, but I never dared go in, unsure how to comfort her when all I wanted was to hold her and forget everything. When Dad passed away, I was 11. The funeral was a cold whirlwind of unfamiliar faces, black coats, and hushed voices. Mom held my hand so tightly that her fingers left marks, but I didn't mind. I thought we could get through this together. But soon, I realized I was wrong. A week after the funeral, Mom sat me down at the kitchen table, the same one where we'd heard the terrible news about Dad. This time, she was alone. Her voice trembled, just like her hands, as she avoided my gaze and said, "Beatrice, I've spoken to your grandmother." She paused, as if gathering courage. "I think it's best if you stay with her for a little while, until I figure everything out." I froze. My words got stuck somewhere deep inside me, leaving only a quiet hiss. "Why? Why can't I stay with you?" She leaned toward me, gently tucking a strand of my hair behind my ear. That gesture, which had always comforted me before, now felt hollow. "I just need some time, darling," she whispered. "Please, be patient. It won't be for long." The next day, Grandma Violet, my mom's mother-in-law, arrived to pick me up. She barely spoke on the drive to her modest home, and her hands, gripping the steering wheel, were white-knuckled with tension. At her house, she helped me carry my bags to the guest room and left me alone. In the months that followed, Mom rarely called. Our conversations were short and followed the same script: "Hang in there, sweetheart, just a little longer." I missed her, but I understood that my words wouldn't change her decision. Grandma, although she tried her best, couldn't replace my mom. She cooked my favorite meals, told me stories about Dad, and even helped me with my homework. But her frequent glances at the phone and her tight-lipped expression whenever Mom delayed my return said more than she ever could. 6 months passed before Mom finally came to get me. I was sitting at Grandma's kitchen table, finishing my homework. Through the slightly open window, I heard the sound of a car pulling up. Turning my head, I saw Mom getting out of an unfamiliar blue sedan. A man I'd never seen before stayed in the driver's seat. Mom burst into the house like a gust of wind. She looked lively, almost happy. Her hair was neatly styled, her face freshly made up, and her dress was clearly new. This was a completely different woman from the one I remembered over the past 2 years. "I have wonderful news," she exclaimed, smiling broadly. I put my notebook aside and looked at her, feeling a mix of joy and unease rise within me. Grandma stepped out of the living room, arms crossed over her chest. Her face was unreadable, her eyes following Mom's every move. "Sarah, this is unexpected," Grandma said in a measured tone, but Mom seemed to ignore her completely. "Beatrice," Mom walked up to me, took my hands, and knelt down to look directly into my eyes. "I want you to meet someone very special." My chest tightened. She spoke with such enthusiasm that I almost forgot my apprehension. "He's a little shy about coming inside, but he's waiting in the car. His name is Nestor. He's absolutely wonderful." Her voice trembled with excitement. "We're getting married, Beatrice." Grandma froze, her gaze growing even harder. I could feel her presence filling the room with tension, despite Mom's joy. "Don't you think this is a bit sudden?" Grandma Violet finally said. Mom waved her off as if the question were completely irrelevant. "When you meet him, you'll understand everything. He's a wonderful man and will be a great support for both me and Beatrice. He has 2 daughters, about your age," she said, turning to me with an even wider smile. "You'll have sisters, darling. Can you imagine? Emma and Lisa, they're such sweet girls." I looked at her, unsure of what to say. The news about her engagement, about Nestor, about these girls who were suddenly supposed to become a part of my life, hit me like an avalanche. In that moment, I had no idea what lay ahead. I glanced out the window at the man sitting in the car. He was staring straight ahead, his gaze fixed on the road, as though the house he had parked in front of was utterly foreign to him. Mom, standing by the door, turned to me impatiently. "Come on, Beatrice, pack your things, we're going home." Her voice was lively, almost eager. "The girls are waiting for you." Her smile was wide, her eyes sparkling, as if the world around her had suddenly become brighter and warmer. I looked at Grandma Violet, whose face remained impassive, as if carved from stone. But she said nothing, only nodded slowly, letting me go. The drive home was filled with Mom's stories about Nestor, about his successful career, and about their upcoming wedding. She spoke of how wonderful everything would be, how we'd become one big happy family, her voice ringing with a joy that seemed almost unnatural. I stayed silent, staring out the window at the gray streaks of the road rushing past. When we finally pulled up to our house, the house Mom and Dad had once bought together, I was overcome with a strange feeling. Everything looked so familiar, yet at the same time, something felt alien, as though the house itself had changed in the months I'd been gone. 2 girls were sitting on the porch. They looked like identical porcelain dolls, matching light hair neatly braided into pigtails, pink dresses with white lace. Mom waved at them and called out, "Come here, girls, come meet Beatrice." I took a step forward, trying to muster a smile that didn't go beyond my lips. "Hi," I began, but the older girl, whom I later learned was Emma, cut me off. "We know who you are," she said, her voice sweet but with a sharp undertone. "Dad told us everything." "Yeah," added the younger one, Lisa, smiling just as sweetly. "But just so you know, he's not going to be your dad. He's our dad. And your mom is going to be our new mom." Emma chimed in, her smile wide but her eyes cold. "We're going to be one big happy family, right, Sarah?" Mom beamed, completely ignoring the tension in the air. "Of course, sweetheart," she said, hugging Emma and Lisa. In that moment, for the first time, I felt like an outsider in my own life. 3 months later, I stood in front of a mirror in a simple blue dress. The wedding was about to start, and Emma and Lisa twirled around the room in matching pink bridesmaid dresses. Earlier, Mom had suggested that the 3 of us were identical dresses, but the girls had flatly refused. "She's not even part of our family," Emma had declared with such conviction that Mom merely shrugged. In the wedding photos, I was almost invisible. Emma and Lisa had somehow positioned themselves in a way that blocked me out, and when I later looked at the pictures, it became the ultimate proof to me that Mom's promises of a happy family were just an illusion. Life in the new family settled into a routine, but I seemed to be erased from it. Nestor wasn't cruel, he just acted as though I didn't exist. Every evening, when he came home from work, he would hug Emma and Lisa, kiss Mom, and walk right past me as if I were part of the furniture. Mom, eager to prove her devotion to her new husband, showered the girls with attention, barely noticing me. The first Christmas after the wedding marked the height of this division. Emma and Lisa received new iPads and designer clothes, while I got a basic phone and a few sweaters from a clearance sale. I thanked God for Grandma Violet. On my 13th birthday, she gave me a silver locket with a photo of Dad inside. Emma noticed it during dinner. "It's so pretty," she said, her eyes sparkling. "You should share it with me." That's what sisters do. When I refused, the locket's chain was mysteriously broken the next day. A week later, Grandma sent me a set of art supplies. I loved to draw, just like Dad did. But soon after, my sketchbook was found soaked with water, and my pencils were broken. When I asked Lisa about it, she just smiled. "Prove it was me," she said in her sweet voice. When I tried to show Mom the damaged items, she just sighed wearily. "Beatrice, stop being so dramatic. You probably left them out in the rain yourself. Stop blaming your sisters." I was completely alone. And then, when I turned 15, my mom announced news that seemed to shake the house to its very foundation. She was pregnant. Emma and Lisa squealed with delight, talking over each other about how wonderful their new baby brother or sister would be. Mom glowed, her eyes sparkling with happiness, while Nestor, seated in his armchair, smiled modestly but with clear satisfaction. I, however, remained silent, sitting in the corner of the room, clutching the hem of my sweater. I knew what this meant. My already fragile place in this family would become even more insignificant. In the spring, 3 weeks after Mom returned from the hospital, a baby boy was born. They named him Leon. The house was suddenly filled with new sounds, cries of an infant, bustling footsteps, and constant commotion. But it quickly became apparent that, like everything else in this house, that joy had nothing to do with me. Leon instantly became the center of attention, and my presence seemed to fade even further. One evening, a few months after Leon's birth, we were gathered in the living room. Mom stood by the fireplace, avoiding my eyes, while Nestor cleared his throat with a self-important air. "We need to discuss something," he began, glancing at Mom as if seeking her support. "With Leon here, we'll need to make some changes to the sleeping arrangements. We've decided it's best if you move into the room with Emma and Lisa. Leon will take your room." I froze. His words were delivered so casually, so matter-of-factly, as if he were talking about rearranging furniture. "No," I said, the word escaping before I could even think. It came out with unexpected force. Everyone turned to look at me. Mom looked bewildered, Emma and Lisa stared in shock, and Nestor frowned. "That's my room," I continued, feeling a surge of emotion rise within me. "This is my father's house. He bought this house. You moved in here, and now you want to take away the little that I have left." The room fell silent. Mom whispered, "What did you just say?" "My dad bought this house," I repeated, my voice growing steadier. "You and your daughters came into our home, and now you're kicking me out of my room." Nestor's face flushed red. Emma and Lisa sat with their mouths open, at a loss for words. Mom stood up and, with a trembling voice laced with anger and hurt, said, "How can you be so selfish? After everything we've done for you? Nestor has been so kind to you, and you." I couldn't hold it in and let out a laugh, but there was no joy in it. "Kind?" I echoed. "He doesn't even look at me." "None of you do." From that moment, the house became a prison for me. No one spoke to me. At the dinner table, Mom and Nestor discussed their lives as though I didn't exist, and Emma and Lisa didn't even bother teasing or mocking me anymore, They simply ignored me. The silence was worse than their previous cruelty. By the third day of this suffocating quiet, I realized I couldn't take it anymore. I picked up my phone and called the one person who had never let me down. Grandma Violet answered immediately. I couldn't hold back my tears as I told her what had happened. She didn't ask unnecessary questions, simply saying, "I'm coming to get you." When her old car pulled into the driveway, I saw Mom and Nestor standing by the kitchen window. They watched as I walked out of the house with my backpack. Neither of them tried to stop me. In fact, there was relief in their eyes. Moving in with Grandma felt like I could finally breathe again. We had breakfast together, baked cookies, and spent long hours talking about Dad. 2 months passed like a single moment. Then one morning, Grandma sat me down at the table with a serious expression. "Beatrice," she said, taking my hands in hers, "I've spoken to your mother. She's willing to relinquish her parental rights. I want to adopt you." I froze. Her words seemed unreal, like a dream. "Really?" I whispered. "Really," she replied. "But the choice is yours. I just want you to know, this has always been your home, and it would be an honor for me to become your legal guardian." I couldn't hold back my tears as I hugged her. The adoption process went surprisingly quickly. Mom signed all the papers without a single objection. When we went back to collect my things, no one was home. All of my belongings had been packed into boxes and left in the garage, covered in dust. My old room had been turned into a nursery for Leon, with blue walls and painted clouds on the ceiling. Grandma and I loaded the boxes into her car and left without saying goodbye. They hadn't even bothered to say farewell. I threw myself into my studies, deciding that education would be my path to freedom. Grandma supported me every step of the way. She proofread my essays, helped me with college applications, and always said, "You deserve better, Beatrice. You're going to do great things." When I received an acceptance letter from the state university with a partial scholarship, Grandma's joy outshone even my own. "I need to tell you something," she confessed one evening, holding my hands in hers. "I've been saving for your education ever since your father passed away. I wanted to make sure you'd have every opportunity." The amount she mentioned stunned me. I could barely manage to thank her. We decided to set aside most of the money for the future, graduate school or anything else that could help me build a life on my own terms. Grandma insisted that the money be mine and mine alone. Those first years at university were like a breath of fresh air. I worked hard, studied diligently, made friends, and for the first time, I felt like I was part of something bigger. Every Sunday, I called Grandma to tell her about my new courses, professors, and life on campus. I always spent my holidays with her, baking pies in her small kitchen and listening to stories from her youth. My mom, Nestor, and their new family were little more than a faint shadow on the edge of my life. To me, they were ghosts of a past that no longer had any power over me. But one day, everything changed. Grandma's phone call caught me off guard. Her voice, usually so lively and full of energy, sounded tired. "Beatrice," she said, "I didn't want to worry you, but the doctors found something." After that, I started coming home every weekend. I wanted to be there for her, even though she insisted I shouldn't miss my classes. "You have to keep studying," she would say. "I didn't save all that money for you to throw it away on an old woman." By the time graduation day arrived, Grandma was too weak to attend. We set up a live stream so she could watch from her hospital room. As I received my diploma, I smiled at the camera and blew her a kiss. Later, she told me she couldn't stop crying as she watched her granddaughter achieve what she had always dreamed of. After the ceremony, I went straight to her, and we spent the week together. She shared stories from her life, reminisced about my father, and dreamed about my future. One morning, as I held her hand, she passed away peacefully, quietly. Planning the funeral felt like moving through a strange dream. On the day of the service, I stood by the casket, accepting condolences from people who had known Grandma better than I could ever imagine. Among them, I noticed my mom, Nestor, Emma, Lisa, and Leon. They stood together, as though trying to embody the family they had always wanted to be. Mom approached me, her eyes red from crying. "I'm so sorry," she said, her voice trembling. "Violet was a wonderful woman." I nodded, unable to speak. Mom continued. "Maybe you'd like to have dinner with us? We'd like to try to make things right." Her words hung in the air, like a question I didn't know how to answer. I nodded, just to avoid further conversation. A week later, I learned that Grandma had left everything to me: the house, her savings, everything she owned. It was more than I could have expected, and more than I knew how to handle. But the decision came quickly. I decided to stay in the town and live in her house, even though I knew it wouldn't be easy. When I returned to my childhood home, it felt smaller than I remembered. The peeling paint and overgrown garden were reminders of how much time had passed. But now, it was my home. Mom, Nestor, Emma, Lisa, and Leon invited me to dinner. Around the table, there was an awkward silence. Mom, trying to make conversation, asked, "What are your plans now that you've graduated?" I took a sip of water and answered, "I'm staying. Grandma's house is mine now." I saw something flash in Mom's eyes, perhaps relief, perhaps hope. But I knew this was only the beginning of a long journey to make peace with the past and figure out what to do next. That shadow in Mom's eyes, that brief flicker, made me feel uneasy, though I couldn't explain why. My degree in business administration had landed me a junior management position at a respected company. The salary was more than I'd ever dreamed of, and thanks to Grandma's house, where I lived rent-free, I was able to save a significant portion of my income. Mom started visiting me more often, usually bringing homemade cookies or casseroles. At first, our conversations were awkward, full of long pauses and careful words. But over time, she began to open up more. She shared her struggles, how a huge heating bill had arrived that month, or how quickly Leon was growing and needed new shoes again. The first time I offered to help, it was almost automatic. Mom had mentioned a leaky faucet they couldn't afford to fix. "I have some extra money," I said, pulling out $200. The look of genuine relief and gratitude on her face made something stir warmly in my chest. After that, it became a habit. Small amounts here and there for the latest crisis, car repairs, a new laptop for Leon that he needed for school. I saw his smile when I handed him the laptop, and it felt like it erased so many old wounds. "You're the best big sister in the world," Leon said, hugging me. It was our first real hug, and I felt the icy wall between us begin to melt. Emma and Lisa also started visiting. Their stories about their lives surprised me with their simplicity. Emma worked as a secretary, and Lisa as a retail clerk. They complained about their struggles, but the sharpness they used to wield was gone. We began talking like people who genuinely wanted to understand each other. Our lunches and occasional get-togethers became part of a new routine. The breakthrough came during a business trip I had to New York. When Emma and Lisa found out, they asked if they could come along. "We've never been anywhere," Lisa admitted. "Dad always said we couldn't afford it." Their excitement was infectious. I booked them economy class tickets and found an affordable hotel in Manhattan. Watching them discover the city for the first time was almost magical. They gasped at the skyscrapers, took pictures of everything, and laughed like children. During dinner at a small Italian restaurant in Little Italy, Emma raised her glass of wine. "To family," she said, and for the first time, the word didn't sound fake. After the trip, our relationship grew warmer. Emma and Lisa started coming over more often. Mom brought casseroles, and Leon eagerly showed me his drawings and school projects. It felt like a new chapter we were writing together. But everything changed on an ordinary Tuesday. I was working on some documents when my phone rang. Mom's name lit up on the screen. "Hi, sweetheart," she said warmly. We chatted about small things, Leon's school play, Emma's new haircut, and family updates. But at the end of the conversation, Mom added, "Oh, by the way, darling, I hate to ask, but could you send $200? The car needs a small repair." "Of course, Mom, I'll send it right now," I replied. "You're an angel, Beatrice. I love you so much." I was about to end the call when I heard some rustling. Mom must have thought she'd hung up, but the line was still active. A conversation began on the other end. "Well, she fell for it," I heard Emma's mocking voice. "Little Miss Successful. How convenient that she's so easy to trick." "Exactly," Lisa laughed. "Did you see her clothes? She thinks she's better than us just because she went to college." Their laughter grew louder. I even heard Nestor's voice. "Keep this under wraps for now," he told Mom. "We don't want to scare her off. We just need to keep building her trust," Mom added. "Once she's completely off guard, we'll get more. That house, her money, it'll all be ours. She's too stupid to realize what's going on." I ended the call with a single tap, but their words kept playing in my mind like a broken record. Everything I thought was family turned out to be an illusion. All this time, they'd been playing me, pretending to care just to get more. The next morning, my phone lit up with Mom's number. "Beatrice, sweetheart, we're having a special family dinner tonight," she said in her usual soft voice, though now I could hear the faint falseness in it. "You'll come, won't you?" I heard the calculated sweetness I used to mistake for sincerity. "Of course, Mom." "What time?" 7. "Everyone will be there." When I pulled up to the house, they were already waiting. Mom met me at the door with a hug, wrapping her arms around me as if afraid to let go. "You look tired, darling. Work keeping you busy?" she asked, pulling back to study my face. I smiled politely, avoiding an answer. At the table, everything looked perfect. Lasagna, my favorite dish, made exactly the way only Mom could prepare it. Emma and Lisa sat across from me, impeccably dressed, playing their roles as caring sisters. Even Leon seemed coached to be especially sweet. I silently watched the performance unfold. Their laughter, friendly banter, and questions about my work all felt artificial, like stage props in a well-rehearsed play. But I let it continue, waiting for them to get to the point. As dinner neared its end, Mom cleared her throat. Her voice turned serious, and her gaze settled on me. "Beatrice, sweetheart, we wanted to talk to you about something important." She reached for Nestor's hand, and he immediately chimed in. "There's a problem with the house. The foundation needs urgent repairs. We've gotten an estimate, and it's going to cost around $10,000. Mom leaned forward, her eyes wide with hope. "We hate to ask, but since you're doing so well, maybe you could help us?" I smiled, and for a moment, her face lit up with triumph. She thought she had won again. "No," I said, cutting through the silence like a knife. "Not $10,000, not $10, not another single cent." Mom's smile faltered, like a painting drenched by rain. Emma and Lisa exchanged confused glances, and Nestor straightened in his chair, trying to maintain a facade of confidence. "But, sweetheart," Mom began, her voice turning shrill. I cut her off. "You forgot to hang up the phone yesterday, Mom." Her face went pale, as if all the blood had drained from it at once. Emma and Lisa froze, and even Leon stopped eating his cake, not understanding what was happening. "I heard everything," I continued. "How tired you are of pretending to love me. How you've been playing me for my money. How you think I'm as stupid as my father. I turned to Emma and Lisa. And you? I heard you say you deserve my money more than I do. That I'm worthless in your eyes. We were just joking. Lisa burst out, her voice trembling with panic. It wasn't serious. Beatrice, sweetheart, Mom reached for my hand, but I pulled it away. The only thing I got wrong, I said, rising from the table, was thinking you had changed. I took a breath. But you know what? For that, I owe you thanks. You finally showed me who you really are. Now I can stop wasting my time trying to build relationships with people who see me as nothing more than an ATM. I walked out of the house, ignoring their shouts behind me. But, as I expected, that wasn't the end of it. That night, the calls began, first from Mom, then Nestor, then Emma and Lisa. They left voicemails, sent texts, begged me to forgive them, insisted it had all been a joke. The next morning, I walked into my boss's office. Janet, remember when you mentioned expanding the office in New York? I'd like to apply for a transfer. 2 weeks later, everything was settled. I put Grandma's house on the market, and it sold quickly. The market was strong, and the location was even better. I found a cozy apartment on the Upper West Side, with windows overlooking the park. Sometimes, as I gazed out at the view, I thought of Grandma and how she would have smiled, knowing I'd finally found peace. I thought about Mom, Nestor, Emma, Lisa, and Leon less and less. Leon, perhaps, was still too young to understand who his parents really were, but I hoped he'd have a chance to grow up differently. Family isn't about blood or paperwork. It's about the people who love you unconditionally, without price tags or expectations. And I had finally come to understand that.